Alright y'all, so we back. Welcome to another BandClap TV rant video. I don't know what it is about this month in general, but bruh, when I tell y'all I've been getting so many spiritual downloads that it ain't even funny. And it's to the point where it's like, man, I can't contain this shit. So I told y'all, every time I get one of these spiritual downloads and I feel like it's something that's beneficial to not only me, but somebody else out there who may need to hear this information, I'm gonna tell it, because as an Allegua, aka as a messenger, that's my job anyway. And we still in the month of Gemini. We still in that Gemini season. So shout out to all my Geminis out there. It's still our season for at least like another week or so. I'm gonna try to get these Pocket Big videos out before Gemini season ends, and just to keep y'all still interested in it. That's why every time I do these rant videos, I always give y'all a small little tidbit of something that's gonna be in that video. So just like my last video, I'm outside again. It stormed earlier to the point where the power almost cut off, and it's still kind of cloudy outside. So I'm hoping and praying it don't storm and all of that stuff like it did last time. And shout out to all of my people who watched that last video, and those of y'all who actually liked the ambiance in the background that was very unplanned with all of the rain and storming and thunder and all of that kind of stuff. And it's funny because when I listen back at that recording, every time that it would really start storming and really start thundering, it was always when I was saying something real profound. Like when I was saying something that was real impactful. Up to me getting to that point, it would start raining real loud, and then as soon as I say the impactful thing, that's when the thunder will come. So I definitely got to give a great thanks to Oya and Shango, because the way I looked at it was the rain was kind of like Oya's way of giving that drum roll, giving that round of applause leading up to the impactful thing I was going to say. And then as soon as I said it and the thunder struck, that was Shango's way of saying, say that shit, my brother. Tell it like it is, my brother. I don't know if Shango sound like that for real, but every diviner that I know who actually channeled the spirit of Shango to speak through them, they had like this real heavy African type of accent. So I always synonymize that accent with Shango. Just like I can pretty much pinpoint a woman who works with Oshun, because every woman who works with Oshun got a special type of way that they talk, and it's the same throughout. And those are the things that I look for when people tell me that they work with certain gods and goddesses. And since I know these gods and goddesses personally, I can count out the characteristics. And if I see that working in you, then that's confirmation for me that you're really doing what you say that you're doing. That's why I always stress that it's best to just go to the source. So that way, when you go to the source, then you can easily be able to pinpoint imposters and fakes and phonies. So with this rant video, I got to give a shout out to not only Bobby Hemmett, because all of this stuff that I'm saying, Bobby Hemmett said this stuff way before me. It's just that sometimes when you hear things from a spiritual teacher as higher up as Bobby Hemmett is, it's like you can listen to it, you can understand it, but until you went through the situation on your own, or until that source energy that they tapped into touched you in a way where now you can truly understand what it is that they said. Now you can feel them. And that's the thing about dealing with the divine feminine. You can understand it all day long, but you won't be able to help somebody else, or you won't be able to teach somebody else about it until you can understand it. So that's what I'm about. So shout out to Bobby Hemmett. And also what really made me want to touch on this topic is a video that Love Lift Life came out with talking about Lilith. Now this is just for me. I don't know about nobody else, but if I really want to go on a higher level channeling wise, if my mind is already on that mode and I go and drink an energy drink or something like that, bruh, my shit just goes on a whole nother level. And the channels that I get are very interesting. So I'm listening to Dreamwise, I think that's who he is, just talking about Lilith. So Lilith is already on my mind. And once you get to that point where these gods and goddesses and these entities are used to seeing you in their realm, and they're used to relaying messages to you and all of that kind of stuff, it just gets to the point where if somebody is talking about them and they themselves want to comment or they want to add something or something like that, and they know that your line of communication is open, they're like some damn chatterboxes, especially these goddesses. I mean, golly. I remember when I first started watching Hot Thor Akhenaten videos where she was talking about Urzuli Freda, and then I started watching Haitian Boko Leonard Elmira video talking about Urzuli Danto. Just the fact of them saying their name, and I went into meditation, the shit was crazy. See, the thing about women and the thing about the divine feminine and all of that, they don't just want you to understand them. They just don't want you to hear them. They just don't want you to listen to them. They want you to feel them. That's the difference. That's the reason why I say it's so important that we need to get back into this form of power. And if we're going to play this game with these soulless beings, we got to come into this game with this type of power, because this is the type of power. It's something that in order for you to even be able to stand it, you have to be on a certain level where you can feel the information. And see, that's on another realm where the soulless beings can't reach, because in order for you to feel, you have to have a soul. That's the reason why when you see these serial killers and stuff like that, raping babies and killing old people and stuff like that, people like to say that guy had no soul, or that woman or whoever, they didn't have no soul when they did that, because no human being that has a soul, that has feelings, will be able to muster up the wherewithal to kill an innocent baby or to kill an innocent elderly person or whatever. So that's why this stuff is so important. Now, you know, since I'm a Gemini, when I come up with these topics and I word these things in a certain way, y'all should know that even though what y'all think this topic is about is exactly what it's about, you know, I'm gonna flip this in many different ways, because even though sex is a universal and most primal form of communication, and exchanges of information and energy. One of the reasons that we were put on this earth and this earthly plane was so that we can learn other means to communicate and exchange information and energy other than just sex. So, I gotta give my disclaimer, because since I'm talking about Lilith, y'all remember what I said in the video about Aaliyah and Akasha. You have to take your morals out of this, because Lilith deals with the realm outside of morality, and she deals with everything that's cosmically righteous, which doesn't always equate to righteousness on this earthly plane. It can seem very, very unconventional in this plane, because we have all of these man-made social laws and rules and regulations and consequences and repercussions. And if you came up thinking that this is the way of life or whatever, and then an entity like Lilith comes on the scene, you're automatically gonna look at her as something evil or something that's of the devil or whatever. But just like Eshu and Elegua, Lilith is as divine as the Mother Mary. It's just all about your perception. So with that being said, with this video, I'm only targeting a certain type of people, a certain group of people who can take this information and digest it in a positive and holistic type of way. Alright, so let's get into it, y'all. So being honest with y'all, man, I've been wanting to do this topic for a little minute. It's just that everything kind of got its divine timing. So when it comes to me doing these videos, I try to not rush things, and every time I don't rush it, things always happen when it's supposed to. So I don't really trip about that. So me just sitting back and looking at all this toxicity that's going on in the manosphere, keeping my ear to the streets, and when I look at some of these YouTubers and I listen to them and listen to their panels and listen how they react when certain topics involving women and love and all of that stuff come about, and this is one thing that I started to realize. You can tell that a lot of these niggas, they hate women. Like, they've been traumatized so bad, they went through stuff so bad, and they never got the therapy for it, that they just got this hatred for women. Now, I know that every guy is gonna have a love, hate relationship when it comes to dealing with the nature of a woman. Now, I wouldn't hate a woman just because of her nature, which is something that's imminent in every woman and something that she really can't control like that. And that's something that I'm really seeing a lot when I go to these panels and when I look at these YouTubers and listen to their content and stuff like that. So now, this was before I looked at Love Live Life's video about Lilith. So I went and got me a little spliffy lit up, and while I'm going into my meditation, I go deep within myself where the Orishas are in that astral plane, and I ask the question, why is it that it's so hard, especially for black men and black women, to come together in a loving type of space and it actually worked out? I mean, I don't really understand it. And that's when I got an answer back from none other than Oshun. And Oshun was like, it's very simple. Why? The way we love is backwards. And the way she explained it was, the woman's idea of love is always going to be about surrender, and a man's idea of love is always going to be about stability. So the best way to describe this is that in a divine couple situation, a man would have grew up his whole life going through the 3 stages of enlightenment, so that once he gets to that stage 3, not only is he structured and stable as a person on the inside, he has enough structure and stability on the outside that if he wanted to bring some outward representation of femininity inside of his stability, she would feel protected and comfortable. So when a goddess comes into that situation, because this is just my definition and my conjecture, I feel like goddess is short for God essence, and the way I like to describe the divine feminine is a divine thought. Because think about it, a divine thought in its feminine form has all the potential to be something great, but it takes a divine masculine to turn that thought into an action that'll speak louder than words. So when that goddess comes into that stable environment that this divine masculine man has created for himself, she comes in and surrenders her essence to him in return for him providing her with stability. So the divine way that this should work out is that you have a guy who went through life, and this guy naturally might have had some bumps in the road as far as trauma go, but he used that trauma in a positive way as motivation for him to build that stability, build himself up to be that strong rock. But also on the emotional level, with him going up the ladder as far as these 3 stages of enlightenment goes, he was able to let go of the bad and the negative when it came to the trauma that he went through throughout his life, and he kept the wisdom and the knowledge that he obtained from going through the things that he went through, and those events and memories turned into the stepping stones that ended up being his foundation. So now this guy is at stage 3. He's at his enlightened man status. He went through that savage stage, so he understands what female nature is about. So he knows how to maneuver around and not get caught up and lose everything because he dealt with quote unquote the wrong type of woman, because again, this was part of his foundation that he created. And he's past the alpha male stage because he's at that point in his life where he knows himself so much that he don't care what other people perceive of him. He don't have to prove anything to anybody, and he gets respected for the work that he's put in and the results thereof. And then this dude, he meets a woman. She might have been through a few bumps in her road. She went through her stage 1 where she thought that she could find love in the wrong places, and this woman learned early into stage 1 how detrimental it'll be for her if she gets caught up. So this woman was able to go past stage 1 without having children and with little to no emotional and spiritual baggage, and then she went to stage 2. So this chick already is coming into the game with money, because since she wasn't worrying about getting attention from these savage thirsty dudes, she was able to focus more on her own career, which is something that's going to deal with therapy, something that's going to deal with healing, or something that's going to overall help her be a Obanani to a man one day. So she's not going to college trying to get some bullshit degree just so she can say, yeah, I got a master's degree, what you got? Or yeah, I got a PhD, what you got? And then with her going up to stage 3, any of that little emotional baggage that she might have accrued during her journey, she starts to do that shadow work, and she starts to do that spiritual work, and like Isabel says, she starts to cut those cords and sever those soul ties once and for all. So now when she gets to stage 3, not only is she spiritually and emotionally back to her innocence because she's done the spiritual work to clear herself, whether that's doing some vaginal steaming and meditating, whether that means having a period of total celibacy, whatever that is, that resulted in her loving herself and appreciating her own worth. So now that man and that woman get together and she's able to surrender her essence to that man, whether that means her always having hot meals available for him and the kids, whether that means after those kids get out of school and they come home to her, the learning never ends. So now those children are going to have book sense as well as a strong spiritual culture and identity about them, which is going to make them very successful and very ruthless when it comes to dealing with this system, quote unquote, going out into the real world. Or whether that means when that man come home to his environment of stability that he provided for her, he comes home and his house is like a recharging station, and that divine feminine woman is that power source of that recharging station, because when he comes home, she done already put the kids to bed, he got a hot meal waiting on him at the table, whatever business that she has on the side that she's doing to fulfill her own purpose, which coincidentally coincides perfectly with your purpose as a man, because you was able to have women around you who are reflections of your own light that you're beaming off. So when that guy comes home, he has her full attention, and it's a perfect trade-off, because that guy, he takes all of the negativity that he went through while he was out there dealing with the world and all of that, and he's gonna put all of that negative energy into her through sex. So quite naturally, the sex is gonna be good. But what makes this woman a lot different is that spiritually, emotionally, and energetically, when she drains all of that negative energy out of you, she replenishes you with that positive motivation. Because I can't lie, it's nothing bad about a woman stroking your ego as long as she has good intentions while doing it. So you as a guy, you feeling good, and you wake up in the morning feeling all energized and ready to do everything all over again. So it's a real positive cycle. At least that's how it's supposed to be. But the way I'm seeing things done now with feminism and quote unquote toxic masculinity and all of these crazy socialistic expectations that's going on. And y'all, excuse me for the sudden change of scenery noise, because I'm currently in my car right now, because that's where it's most quiet at. So I'm in my car, I got my air on, and I'm trying to record the rest of this video. So excuse the sudden noise of the air conditioner and the motor that you may hear in the background sometimes in this recording. But back to what I was saying was, so the way Oshun explained it was, now we live in a generation to where that dynamic has been switched, and that's what makes it toxic. Because now you have women that socially and spiritually haven't been raised up by a divine masculine man, but she's being forced through this music and media manipulation, as well as naturally the way this system is set up. She's forced to have to assume the role of a man. So socially and outwardly, she starts to look at herself in the eyes of a man, because now she has to be the one being the independent, quote unquote, breadwinner and all of that stuff, doing different things that once upon a time the men would be doing that for her if she was working in her divine feminine, like in the last example. But now that's not really the case. So that's why you have a lot of these women and they got this masculine energy about them. But the thing about it is, emotionally and deep down spiritually, she still wants to be treated like a woman, no matter what kind of strenuous career that a woman may have, that'll make her have to socially carry herself more like a guy. And since most guys are already turned off by women with masculine energy like that, because we call that toxic femininity, that's why you have these sexual underworld type of situations, to where these type of women can go and get their rocks off sexually without their social and economical identity being tarnished. And the way a lot of our black men is coming up, because they don't have that divine masculine man in their life. They try to express their masculinity the way they see their mother express her form of masculinity, which, since it's coming out of her, it's still feminine. So when a guy has all of this masculine energy built up, but he don't know how to properly use it because he haven't been taught how to, and that energy starts to become more and more dormant, that man starts to get effeminate, or aka toxic masculinity, as y'all would call it. So as I always said, if a solar being is trying to make it through this system that's already toxic, that's why you have a lot of these effeminate men out here thinking that they got everything figured out because they got a lot of money. But on the flip side, they wonder why it's hard for them to keep a woman. It's hard for women to take him seriously outside of his money. He wonders why every time he gets with a woman, all they really care about is his money. And on the flip side, women are wondering why the only type of men that they're attracting are those emotionless, savage type of men that just want to, quote unquote, pump and dump, because they can't stand to be around you any longer than that because of all of that masculine energy that you're exuding, which is really a whole lot of pent up feminine energy that's been laying so dormant in you that it just hardened. And this is why our relationships between black men and black women are so out of whack. So fast forward to me listening to that Love Live Life episode, and while I'm listening to this I start to get a channel from Lilith. And Lilith was talking about how the reason why it's hard for women that's on stage 1, that Lilith stage, to get with that type of program is simply because the way a lot of black men look at their ideal relationship with another black woman, he's looking at it in the eyes of a 1950s type of situation that you would see between a white man and a white woman. Because when you think about those old commercials and you think about those old magazines talking about the way a woman should treat a man and all of that, I would damn near say 100% of that stuff was really geared towards white women and white men. Now, one day I'm gonna do an episode where I really go in talking about race. But for right now, I'm gonna just leave it at this. As far as race creation on this planet, the white race is the youngest race on the planet, with the melanated race being among the oldest race on the planet. So the way she explained it was, when white women, and when I say white in this sense, I mean socially, because like I said in my last video, you could be of any ethnicity in this system, but if you got pale skin and you follow the laws, statutes, and commands of this system, you can be initiated into the system as a white woman or a white man. But when you really study and look at those exemplified white women that they would show on those TV shows and commercials and stuff like that of how a woman is supposed to be, she's very feminine and respectable, but it's almost to the point to where she's so feminine and so submissive that it's damn near docile, to the point where the guy is pretty much providing everything for her, and pretty much she's damn near an emotional wreck when he's not around, because he is literally her only source of protection. I mean, I know y'all seen those videos to where a white woman would be in a fight or something like that, or she'll be getting ready to go into a fight, and the first thing she do is call her boyfriend, like, yeah, my boyfriend will whoop your ass. So she's always that damsel in distress, because you know, when we talk about black relationships, black women were never really like that at all. So it's like, if that's what you want from a black woman, if that's what this society and this system has led you to believe that that's what you want from a woman, especially a black woman, a melanated woman, then you're gonna be waiting a whole lifetime to find that. And then when you do find that, you're gonna find yourself eventually being unfulfilled. Because when it comes to black women on a cosmic sense and even in an ancient sense, a black woman can be in her most divine feminine and still have the masculine energy of a warrior god inside of her. I mean, let's talk about the Orishas. Just about every single female Orisha, at least when we talk about the 7 pantheons, they all had a warrior aspect of them that was just as powerful as the divine feminine aspect of them. Now, you had goddesses like Oya, who would wear her divine masculinity on her sleeve because she was a warrior goddess, the goddess of storms. But she also has other paths to her that show Oya in the more divine feminine type of light. And even in those paths of Oya, she's still just as powerful. And then you have Oshun, and I call her the sweet assassin because she wears her divine femininity on her sleeve. So you would never expect that she even had a warrior side to her until you get on her bad side and that warrior side comes out. But usually women like Oshun don't really have to fight like that, because just like how that queen bee is covered with a whole bunch of worker bees that'll protect that queen bee at all costs, when you see that chick that's real sexy and it's like you can look at her and tell that she got a real freaky dangerous side to her, and all the dudes that's around her, she put them in the friend zone. Either that or they just scared to approach her and tell her what's on his mind. She pretty much got an army of dudes that'll pretty much do anything that she say, and even if that doesn't work, she can still hold her own. And even with Obanani, and you know I talk about Obanani a lot, in her paths she show you how you can still be a warrior goddess and an educator when it comes to defending your place of stability and educating the youth and educating the community. But every time Shango came into the room, she would step back and let him lead and be that reassuring and nurturing motivation to keep him going. Because another way to think about it is like this: every black family that I know of got a big mama at their house, or that you would go to as a kid. Now, big mama in most cases was your grandmama, and the thing about it was, grandma could be the sweetest woman in the whole neighborhood. You know, she'll be the one that if you need something to eat and she cook dinner, she'll invite you in just to make sure that you get a hot plate. And when it came to her being a nurturer, they say it's nothing like a mother's love, but no, I always say that the greatest love of all is actually a grandmother's love, because a grandmother's love truly is unconditional. But man, when it came to the respect level, everybody in the neighborhood knew that big mama don't play. You ain't finna act up around big mama. Whatever she tell you to do, you gonna do it. And see, this was even when grandpa wasn't even around. She had this type of respect in the neighborhood because no one wanted to get on big mama bad side, because you end up having a shoe thrown upside your head, a damn pot, a iron, whatever she get her hands on. Shoot, she had so much respect in the streets that even the gangsters that was selling drugs and stuff like that, they respected her to the point where if they knew she was at the house, they wouldn't sell no drugs in that neighborhood, and especially on Sundays when grandmama's at church. But the thing about it is, with her being so hardcore, when grandpa came home, grandpa was still the king and grandpa was still the alpha in that relationship. And shit, it's a reason why our grandmothers back in the day would have 12, 13, 14, 15 kids, all by the same dude, and And sometimes, even though grandmama get up in age, grandmama still be looking good. That's that yemo y'all for you. Because the one thing that Lilith wanted to point out more than anything was that even though that grandmama had that real genuine love to give to him, for the most part, that love didn't make him soft. He would get that love from that grandmama, and then he would still go out and get up and do those things that needed to be done. And that love didn't slow him down. But the difference is between that generation and this generation, a lot of these guys have never really experienced that type of love before. And then coming up in this system that's gonna already effeminize you if you're a black male, depending on how he came out. When he run across a woman that's at that stage 1 Lilith stage, and she tries to quote unquote surrender her essence to him. Now, before I go on, let me break down right quick how love would feel like coming from Lilith, or a chick that's on that stage 1 Lilith type of stage. Now, if you remember that video that I did about Selena, and I was explaining to y'all about the planet Venus, which is the planet of love. Remember how I told y'all that the light that emanates from that planet is a very clean type of light. And the thing about it is, to the naked eye, since our eyes isn't used to that type of light, it can blind you because it's so bright and it's so clean. And then when you have a woman that's trying to channel that type of energy of love, when that light comes down and it gets in this type of atmosphere that's all 3D and super dense compared to how it is in the cosmos, in this plane of existence. And I remember Dolo the Pilot Man, in his own special way, he talked about this too, so shout out to Flightball. But in this plane, not only is the energy of love blinding, but love can also burn you. And just like how you can stand outside on a hot summer day with the sun beaming down on you, love can also drain you as well. So all that is what this beam of light, aka love, does to you spiritually and emotionally and mentally, and then physically. And this is the reason why you're having a lot of guys in this generation disconnecting themselves from that energy. Because for a man, when a woman starts to constantly love on that man non-stop, and in the back of her mind, she's looking for that man to stay being this real hard rock while she's surrendering her essence to him. It's like a high-powered beam of light constantly shining on this rock. And the thing about it is, if that rock is constantly getting heated non-stop, just like if you put some stone in a high-powered molten boiler, eventually, it may take a while, it may take some years, it may take some months, but eventually that rock is going to start getting softer and softer until the point where at first you had this real hard rock, but now you got this liquid molten lava. And Lilith, she don't like that, because her motto is real men don't get soft. Because the thing about it is, women that are on that stage 1, they're still at that stage to where they have all of this quote unquote love to give, and they don't know themselves enough to know their partner's strengths and weaknesses when it comes to sex and pretty much relationships in general. So that's why sexual experiences with stage 1 chicks are so wild and so out of control, because a lot of these women, they've been through some very traumatic type of situations that they haven't got therapy for it just yet. So their sexual IQ and the things that they feel like sexually arouses them and stuff like that, for a lot of guys, unless they've been through some trauma like that in their life too, for a lot of guys, that's a whole nother level of stuff. Some stuff that at least at that point in their life, they can't see themselves in a million years doing some of these things that these women have experienced, unfortunately. And now they look at that pain as something pleasurable. So now they're looking for other guys that can please them in that type of way. And if they're not in an environment at the time where they can find those type of guys just so they could quote unquote socially fit in, they try to get with these quote unquote light beam guys, you know, guys who wasn't raised in a real bad type of situation, so they still got that innocent about them. So they're able to go through this life with little to no complications because their purpose is to bring light. Now, at the early stages, these guys can be looked at as educated lame squares, and in some instances, at least from the outside looking in, he will be called a beta male. So just to fit in, these women would try to get with these light beam guys because naturally they're already attracted to his energy and his light. And in these relationships, she's very dissatisfied, sexually frustrated, and just overall unfulfilled, simply because since she haven't learned how to only use her sexual energy to suck away that guy's negative energy, by default she's sucking away his light, which is draining him already. And then since she doesn't know how to give him that positive motivation back because she got so much drama and emotional trauma going on inside of her, she's only looking for him to give her positive motivation. So now he's drained emotionally and mentally. Then for the final nail in the coffin, now she's trying to hit him with that love. And since she hasn't been taught yet that all houses don't require the same high wattage of power, she's trying to give you all of herself, all of her quote unquote love and essence. So remember what I said about how the energy of love can be a very blinding, burning, and draining type of substance on this plane that we live in. And that's in general. Now with her, that energy is braided like a Twizzlers, and it's braided with past trauma, and I mean deep trauma that she still haven't got the therapy for yet, along with the energy of pain and anguish due to situations and circumstances in her trauma body that she haven't got rectified yet. And then on top of that, there's that emotional baggage from being emotionally unstable. So now let's look at this visually. This love that started out being clean and clear, when she beams that light of love on you, it looks like a dark toxic sludge. And due to everything that I just named, that'll soften up just about any archetype of a guy, because you know what they say, the craziest women have the best poom poom. But on the flip side, there's really only 3 archetypes of guys that can even deal with the energy of Lilith. You got number 1, which is Ogun, that ultimate warrior guy whose heart is so ironclad that even when he tries to show love, it's dominant and very hard type of love. These are the emotionally unavailable type of guys, like your pimps, who understands female nature, but since they're thinking on a purely logical type of standpoint, they're able to dominate her mentally or dominate her sexually. And since she's given all of herself to him, he uses her nature almost as a means of control. And since she's at stage 1 and she's never really had no other divine masculine influences in her life like that, she gives him that control. So she goes out faithfully and make that money however it is that she does it. And if you try to step in or tell her that what she's doing is wrong and you don't supposed to be doing that and you don't supposed to let no guy treat you like that and all of that stuff, she's gonna look at you as someone who's soft, someone who's weak. And then you have the player who knows a woman's nature and he's just able to manipulate that nature to get different sexual acts from her and so on and so forth. Now, these archetype of men, for the most part, they don't elevate these women spiritually because it's just like a job. When you got somebody that's an employee and that person is your prized employee, the last thing you're gonna do is to tell that prized employee about other jobs or other positions that maybe that employee would excel even farther than where he's at in your company. So in that regard, that's the reason why you have a lot of those type of guys getting all of the succubus women that's on that stage 1 Lilith type of stage. And let the music and media manipulation tell it is that all women are on stage 1, and these type of guys, they getting all the women, which is so further from the truth. So the second guy that can deal with the energy of Lilith would be the light being guy that knows a lot about tantra. So that stage 1 Lilith type of chick, she'll be able to put it down on him all day and all night, and he don't get soft, so she love it. But on the flip side, just like how I said, you're dealing with these stage 1 type of women that's on that lower level type of energy, and you're a light being, stage 1 lower level type of shit starts to happen to you, and stage 1 lower level type of consequences start slowly showing up in your life, and you start to get to the point to where even though that poom poom may be good, you start to see how that love is braided with all of that negativity. And when it comes to a light being getting hit with that sludge that I explained, that sludge to a light being is like cleaning off oil on a seal during the oil spill. It take a lot when a light being has an encounter with one of these succubus type of women. If he's serious about recultivating that light again, he has to do a lot of cleaning and he has to do a lot of clearing, and sometimes that may mean that he has to go celibate for a while just so he can clean and clear all of that negative energy out. And it gets to the point where he's like, look man, the shit ain't worth it. All the stuff that I gotta go through just so I can get some poom poom, it ain't worth it. So that's why I say when a guy really gets on that stage 2 and he's on that stage 2.5, he rejects a lot of those succubus lower level type of women because of that. And then the third archetype who can deal with Lilith is a guy who's operating on stage 3. He's gonna look at her in the way that a therapist would look at his sick patient, and that therapist type of guy, he's not gonna want to be sexually involved with her at all because he already know what she's bringing to the table, and he's more interested in giving her that therapy and that healing and getting her around some other Akasha beings, getting her around some other Obanani type of women who can rally around her and give her that cocoon type of environment that'll transform her into that stage 2 and that stage 3. So we talk about why is the reason that these stage 1 women only go to a certain 5% of guys, and Lilith was like, because most of the other 95% of guys are either too soft to deal with her, or they're too enlightened, or they're too high to even give her the time of day. Because I used to always hear this Bible verse when I was coming up, and it was that hell have no fury like a woman scorned. And the thing about it was, prior to me doing this video, I really thought of that verse in a whole nother light. I thought it meant that hell have no fury like a woman who is mad or something like that. And I remember this even when I was little and I was coming up. I could look at the most angriest woman and I could tell that the reason why she's really angry is because deep down inside she's sexually frustrated. And I say that a lot even in my older years. I be looking at these women and they be having these real evil looking smirks on their face and real mad with an attitude and all of that stuff, and I be looking at them and I be like, I wonder when the last time they got some real good dick in their life. I mean, can I be raw with y'all? A lot of these women, especially when you talk about the woman who made Me Too, a lot of these women that are in these places of power and they're very mean spirited and all of that, they all have that same scorned type of disposition about them. So you know me, I went and looked up the definition of the word scorn, and the definition of the word scorn is to feel or believe that you are worthless, despicable, and also contempt. So let's go back to that Bible verse. Hell have no fury like a woman who believes that she is worthless or despicable or contempt, which means the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath its consideration. Now, when I looked up the etymology of the word scorn, the word deprived came out, the word to be without, into disgrace. Now think of a woman who has a lot of quote unquote love to give, but every time she gets with a guy and she tries to give him that love, he gets soft. And I'm not talking about just sexual, I'm talking about just in general. You have these dudes out here, they get a girl and she starts giving him a little loving and he gets quote unquote whipped, and he starts to act a lot more in his feminine instead of keeping that masculine frame. Because I can't lie, just like how the limelight can be addictive, that light of love can also be addictive. That's why in some of the most divine type of relationships, you have a guy who either has a small rotation of women, really no more than 3 women, being completely honest. And since he has his own place and none of those women live with him, he has that situation to where he's able to get that wifey type of treatment, aka he's able to get all of that divine feminine love from a woman, but it doesn't make him soft simply because he's able to have enough time to himself so he can recultivate that light within him that makes him masculine. That's why you have these marriages, and if it's a monogamous type of situation, the guy always have some type of either man cave that no one else is allowed to go in but him, and he can get away from his wife for a while and just go into that man cave and have some alone time where he's able to slowly recultivate that light that makes him masculine away from her. Because like I said, at the end of the day, on this earthly plane that we live in, no matter how alpha you think you are, if you have any type of heart chakra chest open, especially when you're in that enlightened man stage, that energy of love, it's like that hot jacuzzi when you first get into it. It can be healing, it can be very soothing, but if you stay in that jacuzzi too long, that water starts getting too hot to handle. And then if you stay in that jacuzzi, then that water gonna start to burn. And you stay in that jacuzzi longer, now that water is gonna start to drain you. And once you finally get out of that jacuzzi, your skin is all shriveled up like a raisin and you're feeling all drained, even though at first when you got in, that water felt good and it felt real soothing. That's how love can be. And as a man, the only way that you're gonna be able to handle a woman who's giving you love in any type of way, whether it's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, it don't even matter. The only way that you'll ever be able to have a woman to trust you with her essence, and I mean fully trust you with her essence, only if she knows that if she gives you that essence, that it doesn't make you soft. Because I can't lie, man, I'm not even gonna sit up here and act like I was just this dominant alpha male type of dude to all women that I got with sexually. And one thing that I can really say is that if you really want to see how mad a woman can get a woman fully aroused. I mean aroused to the point where she can't even control herself anymore. And then you and that woman start having sex, and as a guy, you're not able to hang in there, and you end up getting soft prematurely, and she wasn't nowhere near done. Man, that's a very, very unpleasant sight. But it's funny because just like how you can tell if a woman is sexually frustrated, either due to lack of sex or either to negative or mediocre type of sex, you can also tell when a chick done had some good sex and she was able to level out that overflowing feminine energy that she had inside of her, and in a healthy way, he was able to give her some of his light as well. Man, them chicks be walking around with a glow. Their soul glow. Shoot, they be nice, always got a smile on their face. I mean, it's a total different, and you can see it because since sexual frustration and just frustration in general is a negative type of emotion, and women are emotional beings, a woman is not going to be able to hide it. I mean, no matter how hard she try, if a chick is sexually frustrated, she's not going to be able to hide that shit. But it's just up to us guys to not get soft. And this is the thing, when I say don't get soft, I'm not saying that you got to be like 100% hardcore all the time. I mean, we all have what you call soft spot, but not everybody is supposed to know what those soft spots are. And like I always say, all in all, it's supposed to be a healthy balance. That's why I keep encouraging my fellow guys, men and kings, that we need to start attracting to us our reflection. And the thing about it is, if the women that are attracting themselves to you, if you don't like those type of women, that just means that there's some things about yourself that you got to work on, and you got to get that rectified. So that way, once you finally get to that point where you feel like that you're more aligned with your higher self, you're going to find yourself attracting those same women that's in their higher self, and they can compliment you as the helpmate that they were meant to be. Because Lilith was like, if she had it her way, the way things were meant to be would be that only the men who are operating on a higher vibration of consciousness, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that, they'll be the ones getting the most women. And those guys on the lower level, they'll just be pretty much getting the scraps. And in a lot of ways, it's slowly returning back to that, but it needs to be more in a divine level, to where we have an influx of Obanani that's coming out to be helpmeet to a lot of these alone but enlightened men out here. And man, if there wasn't no system like money to where you can be out of shape, stage 1, you don't got no type of wisdom, no type of knowledge, you're not walking in your purpose, but you got a lot of money and you're still able to get decent women just because you got a lot of money, man, there would be a whole lot more incel in the world. Because I mean, a lot of y'all dudes, sorry to say, but y'all wouldn't be able to keep up. If this system goes back to the way it used to be, it will force these guys to start working on themselves, and it will force these guys to start walking in those stages of enlightenment, so that way they can build their light up, because the more light you have, the higher quality of a woman that you will be able to attract. And going back to the analogy about the house with the light and the gas and the water, no matter if you choose to break the utilities up in 3, so now you got 3 separate bills, so if something happens to where the lights get cut off, you still got gas and water, or if your gas get cut off, you still got lights and water or whatever, or if you just decide to add it all in one bill, no matter what, it's gonna cost you. So you got to make sure that you got the currency to support that, if that's what you want to do. Translation, female nature is still gonna be female nature, whether you're monogamous with one woman or you're polyamorous or polygamous and you have more than one woman, or you got more than one wife. Female nature is still gonna be female nature, and that love, if you're not stable, is gonna melt you, and it's gonna burn you, and it's gonna drain you if you're not careful. And as soon as you show signs of you're melting or that you're getting soft, those women are gonna start leaving your life one by one. So just in life and everything you do, when you're facing adversity, but you know that you got that quote unquote full armor of God on, don't get soft. You're going through situations in your life, and even though you know that you're prepared for the worst, you start to see things slowly starting to get worse. Don't get soft. And for all y'all guys out there who getting with these women, no matter what stage they're on, and you want them to get with your program and surrender their essence to your stability that you got going on, if you want them to stick around until their purpose in your life is done naturally, the best advice I can give you is that in all facets of your life, mentally, sexually, emotionally, and spiritually, don't get soft. No matter what, don't get soft. Real men don't get soft. You know, we have times in our life where we might bend a little bit. We have times in our life where we may get a little disheveled, but we don't get soft. So that's my podcast, y'all. I really hope y'all got something from my little rant video. Usually when I do these rant videos, I just push record, and whatever message come through, it comes through. So it might just sound like I'm babbling, or to some people it might sound like I'm spitting some divine shit. So shout out to everybody who stayed and listened to the end of this podcast. And like I said, I'm so grateful and thankful to you all that y'all got me up to that 1K. So now I can start doing community posts. So I'm gonna start posting, either telling y'all the new video that's coming up next, or I'm gonna be asking y'all what video should I make next. So like I said, follow me on Facebook, BandClap TV, Instagram, BandClap TV. If you're so kind to send me a donation, all the donations that I get is to help buy equipment and things to make my channel and the way I do my video a lot better. My information for that is also in the description below. Interested in my jewelry? As always, shopmeliamar@gmail.com, shopmeliamar on my Instagram, and Until next time, BandClap TV, we out.